Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian. Today we're going to go over Michigan and Michigan State, kind of preview that, and then of course the Week 9 games coming up. So starting off, we're to say that this is a somewhat interesting game for Michigan. This is not the Michigan 2 years ago, obviously, with McCarthy and Corum and all them. This is a game that should be perhaps closer than I think some Michigan fans are making it out to be. Um, I know that Michigan's had some setbacks this year, especially on the road. So, and while Michigan State is a lot closer to home than, USC and such, and Oklahoma, um, I think that this one they're coming back and being winning like last week, like they did against Washington. 24-7. They got back to their physical line play and everything. I think that realistically is going to be too much for a team like Michigan State, who was struggling mightily this year. I think that that's going to be too much for them, and I realistically see Michigan just really. And this is not one of those big brother things. I know that's kind of a thing that a lot of Michigan, more dire Michigan fans say. This is Michigan reinforcing their hold over the state on the college level. Uh, Michigan State has had teams in the past that are really good. This is a awful Michigan State team. And that's not to say Aiden Childs is not a good quarterback, because he has moments and he's made some good throws and what have you. Not against this team. Michigan is determined to reaffirm their grip on the state in terms of college football. And I think that is watching them against Washington kind of reaffirmed that idea. Their defense was solid. They kept getting after the quarterback, and Aiden Childs is not Washington's quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. That's not to say he doesn't have talent, because he is a starter on a team and they don't have anything better. So he has something going on. But I think Michigan State really will not be able to keep up. There might be some scoring that if Washington only scored 7, I'm not sure Michigan State's going to be able to push out more than, a touchdown, maybe 2 or 10 points. So I think Bryce Underwood has a good game. I think their offensive line is able to move. I think Jordan Marshall is probably going to put up another 100 yards, close to it maybe. Bryce Underwood probably have a couple 200, in between 200 and 300 yards passing again. I really think that this team understands what the rivalry means and understands this is one of those games that, even though Michigan State is having a bad year, that it's a rivalry game. You never know. So I think I just don't want Michigan to overlook them, because that is dangerous. Because for some reason, Michigan State loves to come back and play spoiler when they can. However, I don't think this team is capable of that, but Michigan can't overlook them. But I think Michigan is not overlooking them. I predict this will be a stomp, and it's one of the few times I'll put my foot in the ground and say I think Michigan wins this by 3 touchdowns. I really do. Bryce Underwood is way more talented, and on virtually every level, Michigan is better talent-wise. And I think that is going to be asserted mightily. I think Michigan's defense absolutely steamrolls Michigan State's offensive line. So, and just keeps the pressure up. I don't think Michigan State's going to spend that much time on the field, to be honest, at least offensively speaking. So, yes, I think Michigan wins this probably 31-10, if not more. Uh, yeah, Michigan State's not good this year. And like I said, I know that they've had good teams in the past, and I'm not trying to down on them too much, but their coach just hasn't proven to be. He came from Oregon State. He has not proven to be of any significant value to the program, unfortunately. And that's not to say he won't go somewhere else and be great. That does happen sometimes. It could be the players just underperforming drastically. I just don't see Michigan State going anywhere this year. So they've had a lot of setbacks, and when you have a bad team, you have a bad team, and that's just the result. So I think Michigan wins this one 31-10, or something to that effect. So that's my take on this. I'm not going to go too much in depth, because this is not the hardest game Michigan has this year, realistically. So, but once again, rivalry game, anything can happen. But likely scenario, Michigan just blows them out of the water. So, and that's what I'm hoping happens. Moving on to week 9. Um, North Texas put up some crazy numbers last weekend. So I think they're going to beat Charlotte. That game is tonight. I don't see Charlotte. So Charlotte's just in misery this year. So California, Virginia Tech. California beat North Carolina last week. Not saying much because North Carolina is bad this year. I think Virginia Tech probably pulls this one out. But yeah, California. You never know. Never what team you're getting with them. Boise State, Nevada. I think Boise State pulls that one out solidly. They're the better team by all measure. Then you get into some spicier games. UCLA, Indiana. Indiana's ranked 2 by some. Yeah, that's a great team. I think UCLA's kind of comeback kid look. I think it kind of comes to a stop with Indiana. They they beat Maryland last week. Maryland is nowhere near Indiana's level, not even close. So I think Indiana pulls this, continues winning, and I think they beat UCLA. Texas A&M and LSU. I don't know what's going on with LSU. What what team are they going to get? You know, UCLA lost to Vandy last weekend, but they've had some solid games. So and I know Brian Kelly is losing his mind. I don't like that guy, anyways, but that's a different story entirely. I think Texas A&M just too much for LSU. I think so. However, that's a one to watch for upsets. Alabama, South Carolina. Alabama's just rolling. I think they're on kind of a tour duty at this point. I think they're just gonna. I think they pulled. I don't think South Carolina's gonna beat them. I think they pulled that one out pretty handily. Wisconsin, Oregon. I think that's another one of those 56-10 games. I think Oregon is just gonna steamroll Wisconsin. So I'm not gonna spend much time on that. Georgia Tech, Syracuse. I want Georgia Tech to win. I really do. That's a fun team. They're having fun. They're enjoying life. I want Georgia Tech to win. Oklahoma, Ole Miss. That's going to be a tough game. Ole Miss is still very good, even though they lost to Georgia. I think they're still really good. Oklahoma needs to find their identity and get back on track. But that's one of those battles. I couldn't tell you who's going to win that, to be honest with you. I think I think Ole Miss is more than capable, but Oklahoma has all the potential. That'll be a game to watch right there. Stanford, Miami. Miami is going to win that one. Not even going to spend time on that. BYU, Iowa State. Iowa State started the year hot and then fell apart. So I don't know what's going on there, but BYU deserves to win this because of just the effort they've been putting into their season so far. But Iowa State's an upset-minded team, and they always upset somebody during the year. So Missouri, Vanderbilt. I'm going to call Vanderbilt on this one, but Missouri is a tough team. They played Alabama really hard, so I think Vandy wins that one. Texas Tech dropped a lot farther than I thought. They dropped 7 spots. I still thought they might be a top 10 team, but Oklahoma State's in misery this year, so Texas Tech's going to win that one. Virginia, North Carolina. I got Virginia winning that. North Carolina just falling apart at the seams at this point. Bill Belichick seems to be a lot more concerned about his girlfriend than he does about the program, so we'll see how that goes. Tennessee, Kentucky. Kentucky played to a high level last week against Texas, but Tennessee is better than Texas in my opinion. So I think Tennessee pulls it out pretty handily, but Kentucky's a scrappy team and they'll put up a fight. South Florida, Memphis. Memphis fell the rankings, and South Florida's been pretty consistent. They've had 1 or 2 losses here that I didn't really, or I think they had one loss, but I think that South Florida is probably going to win this one. Memphis isn't awful, not a terrible team by a stretch, but I think South Florida's got that one. Boston College, Louisville. Louisville should win this one. They beat Miami, so they have the potential. I think their defense is better than their offense, so it's going to be hit or miss. But I think Louisville probably pulls that one out. Baylor, Cincinnati. Who knows? These are even though Cincinnati's ranked, I wouldn't say they're a ton better than Baylor. I think Cincinnati probably wins that, but Baylor's going to put up a fight. Texas, Mississippi State. I think Texas wins that. Mississippi State is that inferior. It's more about Mississippi being bad than it is about Texas being good there. But Texas probably wins that. Illinois, Washington. Washington has really has potential to beat Illinois. I think they do. I think they really could. Illinois is not a terrible team, but I think Washington is gonna. I think Washington wins there, but hard to say. But I think they do. Already covered the Michigan State. I think Michigan wins probably by 3 touchdowns, somewhere in that range, as long as they play to their style of ball. Houston, Arizona State. Arizona State ranked again. Houston did win last week, so that's a fairly even matchup, I would say. So I'll give Arizona State the benefit of the doubt, being ranked here, but one that could go Houston's way as well. SMU, Wake Forest. SMU beat Clemson last week, but nobody knows how good Clemson is because they're falling apart. So what? How do you say? I think SMU wins this game. I think they beat Wake Forest because I feel they're a better team, but it's hard to tell from their past wins. Are they good? So because their opponents are just falling over themselves. So as long as those shoot themselves in the foot, I think SMU could beat Wake Forest. Rutgers and Purdue, the battle of the bad in the Big Ten. I'll give Rutgers a win because Purdue's just that bad, not because Rutgers is anything at all. So App State and Old Dominion. Old Dominion lost in James Madison last week, and App State lost last week. So I think App State will get we'll just say App State comes back and gets a win because I think they are better than Old Dominion. Ohio, Eastern Michigan. I'll go Ohio. Eastern Michigan has been a disappointment for years now. Although don't let Max Crosby on that. Good old alums. Northwestern, Nebraska. I think Nebraska is better than Northwestern pretty definitively. I think Dylan Rail is going to have a good comeback game after that loss last weekend. Kansas State, Kansas. I know there's a rivalry game somewhere in there. So that being said, I think Kansas will probably pull it out, but Kansas State is a respectable team. So, but I'll just say Kansas. Kent State, Bowling Green. That action, Kent State is just bad on a whole different level of bad. Auburn, Arkansas. Arkansas has been playing teams so hard. I'm going to give this. I think they win because they deserve it. I have no feelings about Auburn. They're fine, whatever. But I think Arkansas deserves to win that because they've been playing people so hard. Akron, Buffalo. Buffalo. They're a better team overall, I think. Maybe Khalil Mack will show up and be in attendance, so give them some motivation. Utah, Utah State, New Mexico. I think I want New Mexico to win, but Utah State's they're a scrappy team. UConn, Rice. Don't know, don't care. We'll just call it for UConn. Maybe I think that'd be kind of an upset, but maybe. Western Michigan, Miami of Ohio. I'll go Western Michigan. ULM, Southern Miss. I think Southern Miss will beat them. ULM is not all that good this year. Central Michigan, Massachusetts. Well, Massachusetts lost last week. I think they continue. I'm calling it for Central Michigan. Minnesota, Iowa. Now, Minnesota beat Nebraska last weekend, so they have something going on. But I think Iowa is just a better team. Pittsburgh, North Carolina State. I don't know what to think about Pittsburgh. I'm going to call this for North Carolina State. I think they are a little bit better, but you never know. Pittsburgh. You never know what team shows up when it comes to Pittsburgh. Florida Atlantic Navy. I'm going to go Navy on that one. Old boys in the service academy. Toledo, Washington State. Washington State has had they've played some hard teams and they've come close. I think they win that. Ball State, Northern Illinois? I'll go with Ball State on this one. They're just, like I said, I know people in Muncie, so go with them. Temple and Tulsa. I think Temple's going to win this one. Tulsa's just not doing great this year. San Diego, Fresno. I'm going to go with Fresno State. I think they're the better team. TCU, West Virginia. Everybody's beating West Virginia this year, so TCU might get in on the action. Go with them. Arkansas State, Georgia Southern. I like. You know what? I'm just gonna go by the logos here. I think Arkansas State wins. Uh, Raging Cajuns, Louisiana, and Troy. Troy probably wins this. Raging Cajuns are on a down year, so I think they pull that out. Colorado State, Wyoming. Who knows who's going to be at the under center for Colorado State? I don't know. So I think that Wyoming takes advantage of that kind of. They Colorado State's going to mess, so I think Wyoming takes advantage of it. So they win. Colorado, Utah. Um, it's hard to say. Prime is kind of having a bit of a struggle without his boys there. Hunter and his son at quarterback and Shiloh in the backfield, in the secondary. So I think Utah wins this, but I don't. I think it's gonna be scrappy because Colorado has the potential to be better than they have been, but they got to get their quarterback situation figured out first. But I think Utah will win that one. So, but it's gonna be hopefully it's a good game, for all our sakes. So, but yeah, that is week 9 of the college football season for this year. My kind of previews and who I think is going to win. There's going to be some good games, hopefully, and hopefully Michigan is able to pull it out and play their brand of football because that's how they win, by playing their brand of football better than their opponents. They cannot pull another USC. So, anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you all have a great day and go blue. Peace.